Hello, everyone, and welcome to Super Switch Headz, the premier Nintendo podcast on all of the internet. My name is Matthew Stoner.
My name is Patrick Nisley.
My name is David Howe, and boy, oh boy, we got ourselves a very special guest this evening. DreamcastGuy has joined us on the show. How's it going, Max?
Good. I'm very happy to be here. We've been trying to coordinate this for like a month, so it's nice that we finally have been able to line up schedules and talk games.
Absolutely. You book early and you book often. That's what my father always told me.
Yeah, that's definitely what your father's told all of us. He's a regular listener. He's part of the podcast all the time. And DreamcastGuy, you are here to talk all about game reviews. You are a YouTube personality. You do a lot of reviews yourself on your own YouTube channel. So you're here to talk about game reviews and what it's like these days and reviews in general.
Yeah, sounds fun. It's a topic I love to talk about because I feel like most people just see the product. They don't realize the way the meat is made. So I'm happy to talk about it for sure.
Hell yeah.
Where we talk about all that meat and how it's made. Speaking of the news, I'm feeling good tonight, y'all. In the news, we're going to discuss some new NPD numbers that came out from August, some rumors of the new Nintendo controller, whatever it might be, the Switch update that gave us Bluetooth audio, and then some Luigi found in some Sega Dreamcast prototypes that came out recently.
That's up.
Yeah. It's going to be a weird one, but it's going to be a good one. I promise and guarantee it. Before we get started, how y'all doing?
Good. Yeah. Living the life.
Very good.
Yeah, I'm not doing as good as you, Matt. You seem like you're doing really good.
I've had a long day. I'm glad to not be working right now. So this is quite the therapy for me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
Patrick, you're doing a little beta testing on Discord, right?
Yeah, I'm working on this text game thing, and yeah, so if anybody wants to help me out with that, definitely join the Discord. There will be more on that, but yeah,
good sell, Patrick.
Yeah, I'm not stupid. Was it? I don't think so. I'm not having a great day, man. I'm just tired. My wife's out of town. If you're a single parent, I don't know how you do it. Kudos to you, because it's one day and I'm like ready to go to bed.
Well, by the end of today's episode, Patrick, this is going to be the best day of the week.
I'm turning it around. All right. So we did our last episode on the WarioWare Get It Together game that just came out. Some quick shout outs there. From the Discord, Kuroseta had a really nice fact about the Ultra Hand, which is the name of that extending hand that we talked about that's in the WarioWare games, apparently, which I did not know. And he pointed out that it was invented by, I always don't know how to say this individual's name, but Gunpei Yokoi. Is that how you say his name?
Gunpei Yokoi. Yeah.
That's for the Game Boy.
Yeah. He apparently there's just an interesting anecdote about that, which I wasn't aware of, that Kuroseta shared with us. Thanks for that. And then also shout out to Steve Irwin, talking about the update of the Switch. I can't talk. I'm moving on. Love you, Steve.
Love you, Steve. Sorry that Stingray got you.
Yeah. Summer Rain on our YouTube channel. Loved when, David, you mentioned that you were playing on the potty, I think, and wanted that to be the gag. Burnout Club also had a nice comment on the YouTube channel. And then Sprowlex on Instagram. Shout out to them. Our oft shouted out Instagram follower, Sprowlex, too. Thanks, everybody, for those comments. We love to hear from our listeners. So please reach out to us, share our podcast somewhere, leave us a note, give us a review. We appreciate those things. And with that, we will get into the news and rumors for the week. As Matthew hinted, we got the August NPD numbers. As a reminder, that is US sales numbers. Usually, especially where Nintendo is concerned, it's physical only. They don't share their digital numbers. And it's always just interesting to see now that we're in 2021, since 2020 was such a big year, are sales about the same or better than they were last year? It looks like from Matt Piscatella, who we get this info from on Twitter, that year to year spending is up in August across the board on hardware, especially. I think that maybe isn't as big of a surprise with the new consoles out. But one of the things that just always interesting is to look at those Nintendo charts. We only get the physical sales, but Mario Kart 8 Deluxe continues to be the number one game.
That's just a weird one because I feel like I don't know a single person who doesn't have it. I'm always like, who is buying this game? Didn't we all buy this 5 years ago? Like, what the hell?
The crazy thing is it's Wii U copies that are being sold.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Fucking nuts.
Yeah.
But I just, that whole debate about whether they'll put out Mario Kart 9, not when Mario Kart 8 is selling this well, I don't think.
Yeah. I think in lieu of making a Mario Kart 9, they just did Mario Kart Tour, right? The mobile game. And they've just been pumping. I think they have all their people on that. Just so they have something to do in the meantime.
Well, I feel like whenever we get the next Mario Kart, it's just going to be 8 with more tracks. I feel like at this point they realize this is the magic. They're just going to call it like 8, but they're going to turn on the 8 on its side and be like, look, it's Mario Kart Infinity. It's
there you go.
Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Yeah, super deluxe.
But I don't know if there's anything else in the NPD numbers y'all wanted to talk about in terms of all the other consoles or anything. Seeing that Mario Kart up there is always crazy.
I think that we're going to be seeing kind of record numbers a lot from kind of here on out, to be honest. I think that like a lot of people talk about like, like there's no way this stuff is going to match like what happened in like March of last year. But I think also like March of last year got a lot of new gamers out there in the marketplace right now. You know what I mean? Like
they're the ones buying Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Exactly. Right. It's like all these people that, got their Switches to be Animal Crossing machines or whatever are now like they've run out of shit to do on their island. There aren't any updates in that game. And I think there are just more gamers now than there ever have been in the past. Part of that is because people keep being born and not enough people die. So things are always going to grow year on year. But I think, but what I'm trying to say is COVID isn't over, and I think that I think a lot of these people that are like new gamers are going to be continuing to buy games.
Well, it sort of reminds me of what happened with the PlayStation 2, where the cheapest DVD player in the world was the PlayStation 2. So everybody got it because of that. And then 6 months down the line, they're like, this thing plays games. And so we had record sales of things like Final Fantasy X, which just exploded and stuff, where it's like the gateway drug of people being like, oh, Animal Crossing. It's like picnics with your friends, but indoors. Okay, I'll have that. There's another Mario Kart. Oh, I got to buy that.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, like shortly after I think we recorded our last episode, the Switch got a new system update. We're now running version 13.0.0. It came out. And the big thing here, the Bluetooth audio. We've been hearing about little changes, kind of prepping for this under the hood, and here it is. Have y'all tried out Bluetooth on your Switch?
I did a tiny bit. These are actually Bluetooth headphones, but my computer's not Bluetooth, so I wire them up during podcasts and stuff. But I tried it. It works well, but it also feels a little bit weird in a way because I feel like it's such a handheld friendly device. It feels weird in a way it's like at this point I can plug it in.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason why they didn't do it for so long. You know what I mean? I think, there's that. And then obviously, you can only have, I think, 2 wireless controllers connected, at a time in order to still use the Bluetooth connections through headphones.
But if you're using Bluetooth headphones, wouldn't you be playing?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of things to be said about, having headphones in while you're on the TV, if somebody else is asleep in the house or something like that. I think there's lots of different uses. For me, I probably won't be using it just because the delay in the audio is really noticeable to me. I play a lot of precision platformers. I play a lot of Spelunky basically. And in that game, you really want the audio to be syncing up correctly, and you're moving around so fast that when there's a little bit of delay, it kind of fucks with my brain a little bit. But I mean, at the same time, it makes sense. Most people, when they buy Bluetooth headphones, just throw away their old wired headphones. You know what I mean? Because they think they're just kind of moving into the future, especially now that iPhones don't even have aux ports. You know what I mean? Everybody has Bluetooth headphones these days. So it's good they finally did it. It's just a very Nintendo thing to drop it randomly 4 years into the Switch's lifespan.
Now we can finally listen to all 1,018 musical tracks from Super Smash Bros. Ultimate without wires.
That was my first thought. Yeah.
Yeah, stick that in your backpack without a cord coming out of the backpack. There are a couple other little updates in this 13.02 other than just general stability, but it's like there's, first of all, you can tweet twice as long now. You can finally do 240 characters on a tweet from your Switch. That's the most important update. But then also it added the ability to update the firmware on your dock, which I don't know that the current dock supports, and that might just be like prep for this new OLED dock, like the white one with a LAN port.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what that would be used for. I don't know that, like 4K upscaling is something they could add through firmware or anything like that. So I don't really know like what you would update your dock for personally.
Well, I still have a theory that the Switch OLED dock is going to be compatible with the Switch Pro whenever it comes out. I think they're already future-proofing themselves, but they realize that at some point they're going to have to program the docks that are already built in factories. So it's just laying the groundwork for that.
That's not a bad idea.
Theory. Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know of anything else other than those. Was there anything else in this update? I didn't see.
I mean, that was the main gist of it. I think there's some better stick calibration features and stuff like that. But other than that, yeah, it's pretty basic. I do think you're right, Dreamcast guy, in that it's like obviously future proofing in some way. I mean, we saw like the Bluetooth stuff kind of being worked on by data miners and stuff, half a year ago or something like that, and it's finally come out. So I think they're just looking towards the future with some of these updates.
And then our next couple news items are possibly related. The next one on the list here is that it's been suggested that there has been a new FCC application for a new Switch controller. And somebody's tracked down this information. I guess Samus Hunter 2 is being credited with it. What I'm looking at, they are a alleged Twitter leaker person, but
alleged Twitter user, Samus
alleged leaker, Twitter / definitely Twitter, not alleged, but I can confirm they are a Twitter user. What do y'all think about this? It kind of possibly, some of the speculation is tied into our next item. So if we want to talk about that, that makes sense. Because I guess they say that it has some details. I do not follow all this stuff, that it's similar to like the SNES official controller. Some of the like,
it's like the patent filing name or something, right? Yeah.
Product code or something.
Yeah, it's kind of like in order from the other like NSO exclusive controllers. Which is making some people think that it might be tied to whatever new system they drop. Obviously, everybody goes to N64. I think it'd be really tight to get an N64 controller in 2021.
Also, I mean, it seems kind of necessary if they end up releasing the Nintendo 64 games. As somebody that does play stuff emulated here and there, playing Nintendo 64 games without a Nintendo 64 controller is a pain in the ass. Really I think if they can sell one, they're going to sell one.
Yeah. Is it the C buttons that make it hardest?
Well, because a lot of games either have you play it with the left side of the controller or the right side of the controller, so you end up having to custom tailor it for each game you play. Where it's like, oh, it's GoldenEye. Well, I can control that with just one stick, but now I'm playing a wrestling game. Well, I need both sticks and the C button. So like every game, you have to program the entire controller for.
Gotcha.
Right. Yeah, that would definitely make sense. I mean, I think you'd be able to do it without them, but it's certainly, I would just be interested if they are going to put these out. All the old ones have been like pretty much 1-to-1, but wireless, right? And so like, I'm just curious what they're going to do about that stick, because that stick is like designed to die or like fail over like a X number of years, or like, everybody's N64 controller that I have ever seen is all wonky and loose and everything like that. So I wonder if they'll put in any kind of fixes to that if they do an N64 controller.
Yeah. Well, this sort of ties into the next item, which is that alleged Twitter user, Nate the Hate. No, definitely.
He's got real, 2 Twitter accounts.
Real person. But we talk about from time to time their podcasts and some of the things they say on Reset Era. They were talking about N64 games definitely coming at some point to the Nintendo Switch Online service, and then speculated on the podcast about whether that's higher tier and when and all that kind of stuff. But so that kind of overlaps possibly with that new controller. If we're going to see, people are maybe running with that and making news items when it could be something that's far off. I don't know. What do y'all think about that? Because there's also been a lot of talk about Game Boy. Could that come, as well? Or do you think it'll just be one or the other?
I think they're going to probably like 1-2 punch. I feel like Nintendo's getting into this interesting space where everybody who wants a Switch has a Switch. And I feel like once you have that, it's all about, okay, how can we get them to pay more per month? How can we get them to get Nintendo Switch Online? How can we get them to, pay for the DLC for the games we've already sold them? Like, all right, we want you to get the season pass for Breath of the Wild when you bought it at launch. And I think they're trying to figure out new ways of getting you to pick up the Switch every single day. And, here's 20 classic Game Boy games. Here's the best way to play Pokemon on modern TVs. Now let's also throw in GoldenEye and Conker's Bad Fur Day, whatever. I think it's that. I think it's just a way of getting the players who are already owning a Switch and loving it. And it's less about getting new people onto the Switch. Because I feel like at this point, we've all got one. And a lot of people have multiple,
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a really great take. I think Nintendo, where the really big need is always services, to have a robust set of services. We have Nintendo Switch Online, but to have more of an offering in that realm, whether that be Game Boy Advance or N64, it's always a need that people want more Nintendo games on their systems. And however they do it, if they have different tiers of the Nintendo Switch Online with N64 games or with N64 games or Game Boy Advance games, it would mirror some of the stuff that we're already seeing in other streaming apps like ESPN Plus or Netflix or Hulu.
Yeah, I mean, if Nintendo is going for this kind of service-based subscription thing, I mean, which they obviously are. I mean, that's what NSO is. It's I guess mainly the ability to play online with kind of these extras, right? But I mean, if they are going that like subscription service route, they're certainly taking their sweet time with it. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. I kind of feel like they are doing that, but playing this long game, you know what I mean? And kind of, because it's, it not only has it, it was like NES for like, and just that for so long. And then now it's been Super Nintendo for like 2 years, right? I don't think they did any new system last year. It was just new NES or new games every like 3 months or whatever. And so, yeah, just the fact that those are still the only two we have for so long just shows that they're clearly in no rush to get this out, which hopefully makes me think that this is something that will persist, past just whatever this current generation of console is for Nintendo, past the Switch, right? I just wouldn't hold your breath. I mean, I think that, obviously, Nate's got some sort of insider information. I listened to his podcast. He, like, whenever he did the Game Boy ones, he was like, this is kind of based on data mining and we'll see and whatever. And then when he was talking about the N64 stuff, he was like, it's coming out. I know about it. He was super cocksure. You know what I mean? And it was like, all right, sure. But I think what's happening right now on Twitter and online is like, everybody is like being ready to be like, all right, where's this Direct? Let's get the Game Boy games. Let's get the N64 games. I'm just going to say, I'm sure that these things are coming. It would be foolish for them not to eventually come. Just don't be disappointed if it's not happening tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, if Nintendo really wanted there to be a way for you to play like Metroid Fusion before Dread came out, it would have been out already, It's like, we'll see when this stuff actually happens, but I think they're playing the long game and they don't really care about the immediate. They just know that once these things are out, we'll just be like, great, and move on to the next thing to get hyped about.
Yeah.
I'm still curious. I think the thing that I'm kind of sticks in the back of my mind is that one of the things that's been holding it back, the rumor has been that Nintendo's had licensing issues here and there. Like GoldenEye is technically owned by 3 separate people. Somebody owns the rights to Pierce Brosnan, somebody owns the theme song, and then they own the original code. So I'm kind of curious if they end up just selling some games individually, the way that like Sega started to just sell Sega Genesis games on the Switch through the eShop. And they're basically virtual console games, but they're just not allowed to call it virtual console. I'll be curious if there's like 20 or 50 that get put onto the Nintendo Switch Online service, but then premium ones, like they go to companies that made famous Nintendo 64 games and say, all right, you could sell it through the Nintendo Switch shop and it'll work for people who have the online subscription or something like that. I'm kind of curious if I want to see more than just Nintendo stuff. I guess that's my thought. Is that a lot of times my favorite games are third parties things,
That's where we're going to get the Chameleon Twist collection.
Yeah. I'm obsessed with Resident Evil, and classic Resident Evil 2 is just gone. I mean, even the terrible Nintendo 64 port, it'd be cool to have Nintendo 64 Resident Evil on my Switch.
I mean, yeah, I feel like those are some of the ones that I feel like definitely wouldn't come, because you can look to the games that have collections, and like Capcom are one of these people that just do the collections. Like all the Mega Man games aren't going to be showing up on NSO because they've got them in bundles on the eShop, right? What's another one? Konami. We don't ever see Konami games on NSO because they're doing the Castlevania collections and they're doing the Contra collections and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's all just publisher by publisher, and then like you said, some games. Well, first of all, I hope Pierce Brosnan owns the rights to Pierce Brosnan. But I mean, I would just for his sake. But yeah, I think personally, though, a lot of people have been saying like they don't think that Rare games will come to the N64. But I think that like that might be what has been all those switches on the back of like Microsoft executives. Like shelves, like in those webcams and everything like that. I think that I don't know if it's Game Pass coming to Switch. I think it might just be something as simple as like we're licensing out all the Rare games that everybody loves, like to NSO for whatever, right? Like that's the deal they struck. I think that's very possible. See Banjo-Kazooie, something like that.
It'd be free money for Microsoft if they were just like, yeah, sure, license them. Sure, yeah, you want to pay us for the games that we didn't even make? Because all the Rare employees quit a long time ago. It's like, yeah, we're literally getting paid for somebody else's work 20 years ago. I'll take that paycheck.
Totally. Yeah. I don't know. It's Microsoft. I just don't think that Microsoft sees Nintendo as a competitor,
Well, moving on, while we're still talking about NSO or the Nintendo Switch Online, because of our recording schedule and when our episodes come out, we tend to miss these because they've been doing more and more of these free trials, which is great. It's really nice to see Nintendo have free game trials, even if they're only for like a short amount of time, but they tend
like 2 days.
They're about a week now, but they used to be like, they would announce them right after we recorded, and then they would be up before our next, or like over before our next recording date. So it was like, we could never get them, but this one is coming out, knocking on wood, the day this episode comes out. So everybody who wants to try out Story of Seasons, Pioneers of Olive Town, you have a chance for the next week to try that out. And then a slight discount if you do decide to buy it. So it's cool to see Nintendo doing more of these. I don't know how y'all feel about it. I feel like the games they've been doing haven't spoken to me, but or I've already owned them.
Only thing to really say about this game is this is the real Harvest Moon. There's like also a Harvest Moon on Switch that is the fake Harvest Moon. This is the Harvest Moon like by the original people, and they just lost the rights to the name in the West, so they call it Story of Seasons. So if you're into like what's that fucking game that everybody loves?
Animal Crossing?
Well, that
Stardew Valley?
Yeah, Stardew Valley. Yeah, if you're into Stardew Valley, you'll probably like this as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just like offended all our Stardew Valley listeners. They're like, I'm not listening.
That we're trying.
The game with the watering, waifu garden. Whatever.
Yeah, waifu garden.
You think I don't know what the real Harvest Moon is? THQ Nordic had a big 10th anniversary event, like a live stream with a bunch of game announcements. Did y'all have a chance to watch this? This happened this past week. Anything speak to y'all?
I didn't. They sent me an email and I opened it up, and I'll be honest, I did not know any of the games other than the remasters. They're doing like a couple remasters and some new game that I can't even tell you what it was about. But yay, games. Yeah.
What about you, Matt? Did you watch this?
I did watch it. Nothing also similar didn't speak to me specifically. It's nice to see Destroy All Humans 2, another remaster of that. It's always a fun game.
I guess they're doing like an actual sequel to SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom. So I guess that remaster sold enough for them to make like a new original game that's a sequel to it. So that's kind of cool.
Yes. Yeah, that was sort of one of the big ones, right?
SpongeBob, the Cosmic Shake.
Yeah, for a certain demographic there. Well, we'll move on then.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, for me, like I like seeing THQ stuff. I worked at THQ talk about this rarely, but worked there for about a year doing QA stuff. And so I worked on the MX ATV Legends, and it's the only game that I have credits. One of the few games that is available online that you can see my name associated. So I always enjoy seeing MX versus ATV games.
Yeah, they're making a new one, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's part of the THQ Nordic presentation.
You should QA for that game.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Pull me in, coach.
Yeah. You guys need me.
Man, that job, they paid dog shit. It was like,
I'm sure.
It was like $8.75 an hour or something like that.
Well, yeah, being a game tester in like the early 2000s, that doesn't sound like a very profitable time.
No, but it was so fun. It was probably the funnest job that I've had. The culture was incredible. It was great. We can move on, Patrick.
Well, Toby Fox on I think it was the 6th. Is that right? Whatever the anniversary of Undertale, made the announcement for the next chapter of Deltarune. Deltarune Chapter 2 is out now. Just came out right then, and it's free. It's free for PC, I think, on itch. So it sounds like, I don't know if that'll be free for a certain period of time or what have you, but at least according to what he's claiming, that, all the other chapters are all going to come out at the same time. And probably that's when you can actually buy this game on other platforms, I would guess. But
yeah. Is everything okay with it? Your kid?
My cat is jumping on this table, and
gotcha. I thought it was a ghost. Anyway, I didn't play Deltarune, but I do think this will remain free. I think that's the idea. I think Deltarune Chapter 1 was free, and this will be as well. I do know that this crashed itch.io when it came out, which was very surprised that they released it on that, because I was like, man, this is definitely going to crash that website. But yeah, no, it's cool. A lot of people have been talking about it in our Discord. It seems very popular.
Yeah. My roommate's playing it. He's a big Undertale fan, and he said it's not nearly as good as Undertale, which is such a high bar, but it's still just kind of interesting to have an excuse to go back to that world and see these characters and stuff. So he said, it's not the best, but it's also the fact that it's free kind of increases your enjoyment of how is this so high caliber for 0 cents? So
yeah,
it's interesting that it even exists.
Yeah, for sure. Toby Fox seems like a very interesting guy. He's good friends with Sakurai or whatever, right? Isn't he? They hang out and Japan, play music in Japan.
Do you think they text every day?
Yeah, I think they text every day.
Yeah. I hope so. I think it's one of those dudes who just got his $10 million and that's all he needed. And he's like, all right, well, I have my tiny little cabin in the woods. I'm gonna just do whatever I want for the rest of my life. Who cares?
Yeah, that's it.
I don't think we actually talked about this a few months ago when there was sort of a rating of this collection, because it wasn't 100% clear what it was going to be, but a Disney Classic Games collection has officially been announced now. And this is weird, I think, because there was a previous Disney Classic Games collection, had some of the same games, but not as many as this one. It's basically the Aladdin and the Lion King games, which came in a 2-pack before, right? But this also has the Jungle Book game. And I think some different versions of all these games too, right?
Yep. So the big one, especially for me, because I loved this fucking game when I was a kid, is this one has the SNES version of Aladdin on it.
Okay, yeah.
The last collection did not, because Genesis Aladdin, which is also a good game, unless people fight over which one is better, but it had the Genesis version, but not the SNES, and it's a completely different game. It's created by the creator of Resident Evil, who was the main director on this game, on this Aladdin game. But it is weird that they put this game out without Jungle Book and SNES Aladdin, and now they're just releasing it again with those two games, and they're releasing it physically. So it's they haven't announced. Do people who bought the old one, do they get these games as DLC or I'm just very confused about this whole situation. I'm not mad because I'm glad that they finally figured out how to get that Capcom, Aladdin on there, but it's just bizarre.
It's a little weird.
Yeah.
I only want Capcom Aladdin. Honestly, I don't even care about the rest. I saw that news today. And I was like, I just want SNES, Capcom Aladdins, throw the rest in the garbage.
Yeah, man. I want to use my little blanket to hover down and throw apples.
Throw apples, beat people to death with apples.
Yeah, it's amazing, man.
And then rounding out the news items for this week, Great that we have you, Dreamcast Guy, here for this one because of the name. Apparently, some people have found a prototype of the Dreamcast racing game Sega GT, and in this particular build of it, they've discovered that for some reason Luigi is in it, and there's some images online and that kind of stuff you can see of this. And maybe it was just the developers having a fun time putting Luigi in this game, or what, who knows. But it's just kind of an interesting little tidbit there.
Yeah. Well, I've always, I have every Dreamcast game, huge fan of it. I collect all the different versions of them. I have all the strategy guides, every controller, every system variation, pretty much love the system. But part of what's always kind of interested me in it is that the development was so easy that a lot of times people would make games incredibly quick because it was based on Windows. So, there was a Half-Life game that's fully finished and they just chose not to release it, but you can find copies of Half-Life Dreamcast, which was like DLC was made specifically for it and stuff and everything. And then there was a game called Propeller Arena, which was like a sky combat game that was supposed to be released pretty much on September 11th. So for obvious reasons, they canceled that game. But I don't know. It's always interesting that the more we dig into this console, we just keep finding new unreleased games for it or new unreleased assets. It blows my mind.
Yeah. I think this means that Luigi is Sonic's brother. Confirmed.
True. They have to kiss though. That's those.
Yeah, you have to cross over the Rule 34 fandom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
come on, Nintendo! Don't be cowards. Make them kiss.
Yeah.
Wasn't this part? Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't this part of like a really big like dump of a lot of Dreamcast prototypes? Like
the mother load is what the project is officially called. Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't like dug through that yet, but I'm interested too, because anytime anything would come out about the Giga Leak, it would just be fascinating from like a game historian perspective, you know, just like seeing all this early stuff and stuff left on the cutting room floor. So I can't wait to peruse this.
Yeah, there's from it's a Twitter account, Hidden Palace org. They say there's 135 Dreamcast prototypes and 349 Xbox OG prototypes. So there's some Xbox there too.
That's insane.
The stuff we're gonna see, I guarantee we're gonna see some weird stuff. I like there's so many times where you see like a pre-alpha Crow game and stuff. It's always just that South Park game that came out a couple of years ago that was like an open world action adventure South Park game. I love these like prototypes. They're terrible sometimes, but I love them.
Me too.
Yeah, for sure. There'll be another 10-hour video from Did You Know Gaming on unreleased Dreamcast games. Yeah.
All right, well then that does it for our news and rumors segment, and we're going to take a very short break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking with Dreamcast Guy all about game reviews, making them, and all that. How the meat is made, is
how the meat is pounded. We'll tell you all the secrets.
All right, we are back, and this week we are talking all about game reviews. We're talking here with Dreamcast Guy, and we're going to be asking lots of questions about how you make your reviews and the process and all that. But time allowing, we might get into some other issues surrounding just sort of fans' perspectives and review general questions, but we're going to mostly focus on that. So Dreamcast Guy, thanks again for being here, and maybe you can just take a minute. I'm sure most people who are watching this or listening to this are familiar with you, but if there's somebody who isn't, maybe you could just kind of talk about your channel, what you do, especially reviews, since that's what we're talking about.
Oh yeah. Well, I am Dreamcast Guy. I do a lot of like gaming talk in general, like news and rants and stuff, but I consider my main speciality to be game reviews. Very early on, I used to do competitive Halo events, and we used to hack Xboxes. So I lived in this house for about 5 years where we would play and beat every single game that came out. So for 5 years, I beat literally every game that came out. And it got me in this habit of learning new games, explaining them to the roommates, and kind of getting in this process of master a game, figure out the vocabulary, translate this into digestible information, and feed it to someone else. Pick up the next game, figure out how to beat it. And it gave me this process. So whenever YouTube came around, it's like, oh, I just do that, but on camera, you know. So it's one of those weird times where it's like the accidental skill set. But yeah, I'm happy to talk about the process.
Awesome.
We had just real briefly, we had a couple guys who used to work for Prima and Brady Games on, and they and that was a fascinating interview. I feel like there are like one or two ways you can go with that, right? Like with that skill set, right? Because they were saying the same thing. I always kind of assumed that like strategy guides were like made by people on the inside, right? But it's just people who are just really fucking good at playing games and retaining that knowledge. So it's cool you went the reviewer route with it.
Yeah.
Better choice.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
In the current climate. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that there's no one process, and you kind of just explained it maybe, but yeah, maybe you can tell us just sort of do you have a process for creating a video review, or is it different every time? Or
it's a little bit different each time, but it typically follows the same process, which is typically before a game comes out, I do try and look at trailers and look at forum posts and stuff and kind of figure out what people are most curious. A lot of times with my reviews, my main goal is to explain the game to somebody who's never heard of it. I want to make a point to actually completely cover the gameplay, the story, the aspects, the graphics, the load times, everything that I feel like a person's going to need to know the most. But I want it to be somebody who's never played a video game can watch and understand it, which is why one of the main golden rules I try and do in my videos, which people don't even notice, but I feel like that's good, I don't talk about another game in my review. So if I'm talking about, Horizon Zero Dawn, even though that came out at the same time as Breath of the Wild, and I so badly want to compare it and the rest of the internet is comparing it, I don't want to assume that somebody has played a previous game before they started watching my video. So if you practice talking about stuff inside a vacuum, you get better at saying, here's why this is good on its own. Here's why this story element works on its own. And then later on, if I do a follow-up video talking about spoilers or something, that's when I start talking about more grand context stuff. But a lot of times I do just beat the game while taking a lot of notes. And then a lot of times when I'm taking notes, it's just specific sentences. I'll just be like, chapter 3, the big plot twist doesn't exactly work. And then just by knowing that much, I'm like, all right, so I need to talk in general about how the story is unfolding, the pacing, the writing, or if I get a particularly satisfying gun and I shoot somebody and they explode into freaking applesauce, I'll put in the script right there. Super shotgun is satisfying. Remember clip 23 or whatever like that. So usually what I do is I record a bunch of 10-minute segments of the entire game, but I have a very good memory, thankfully. So I kind of memorize the whole game as well. So when I'm editing it, it is kind of just a matter of going back through the game chronologically and taking all that segments and dropping them on there. But it is kind of just a matter of beating the heck out of the game and trying to chew it up and figure it out. A lot of times I just consider myself a filter. I feel like people come to hear about the game. They don't want to hear about me. So I try and make it a point to not put too many anecdotes. I try and make it a point to be as focused on the product as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
Yeah, that's something I've actually wondered, especially when it came, I think it's different. Like you said, it's different for every game, but I know like review codes will come out like really close to release or whatever. And you find like, especially I'm thinking specifically about like Cyberpunk 2077, right? Like I know they only got the codes like 3 days before the game came out or something like that. So a lot of people were reviewing the game, not even having completed the whole thing. I guess my question is like, do you 100% a game in order to review it? Do you feel like you have a responsibility to play through everything, or is it just essentially beating the main story?
So for me, typically what I try and do is main story, 20% of side quests, because I feel like at 20% of side quests, you normally have most of the weapons, most of the skill trees, most of the secrets, and sometimes they like to hide important stuff in side quests. This is years ago now, but I'm a big fan of Evil Within, made by the creator of Resident Evil. There is a secret monster that you can unlock in Evil Within 2 from a random side quest in just a random shed that makes this monster hunt you for the rest of the game in a very Nemesis style series of events. That's super cool. But if somebody just speed runs straight to the end of the game, they're going to miss what I feel like is very important contextual universe spooky scariness. So a lot of times I try and beat the main story while doing about 20%. So usually what I'll do is I'll make it up to about the final zone where I can tell the story is wrapping up. And then I do a bunch of side quests and look around and figure stuff out and try and break the game. Typically, that's when I see if I can throw myself off the map and see, all right, can I make an NPC kill somebody? That's when I start testing that kind of stuff.
Right.
Well, you saying a lot of this, I've already got several questions I want to ask you.
Yeah, please.
Like you said, you take notes during the game, and this is sort of like two questions in one, but like I've been doing a lot of that too because I'm trying to write for games. And does that how does that upset your flow of playing a game at all when you're taking a break to like take notes, or does it change your enjoyment of games to be focused on making a review? Or is this, like you said, you lived somewhere and you did this for fun almost? So like maybe this has always been a part of your enjoyment. I don't know.
It doesn't really break up my flow. And honestly, this is a question I get a lot. I think it heightens my enjoyment. Like the way I explain it is like the way it must be, it should be a food reviewer of that. You need to eat to live. These meals are already top quality. I'm playing the best games. I'm getting to experience the most refined, beautiful art, these $60, $70 games on the best hardware every single day. But I'm having to force myself to analyze it and look at stuff. And it makes me enjoy it more. The same way of like, if you're getting a $100 piece of sushi and you're hungry, you might eat it too fast. But if you're a reviewer, you have to take your time and eat it and then take a sip of water and kind of realize, all right, how is that on my palate? I feel like I analyze it and enjoy it so much more. I get better memories out of it. And here's the thing, I save a lot of my gameplay forever and they feel like home movies in my head. A lot of times it's these great, amazing moments, especially from online games. I have footage of games that are gone now. I've played online games and stuff that the studios failed, and I have this raw footage of games that just poof are off the map. And it's pleasurable that I can look back and see these like slices of my own little personal journeys.
Yeah, that's cool.
I don't want to dominate if y'all have other questions, but sort of just tangentially related. Does the pressure to put out a review at a faster, at a time where it's more timely or whatever, or do you feel that pressure / does that affect your enjoyment? You know what I mean?
Not really, but I feel like if I can't hit a deadline in a comfortable pace, I'll skip the project. I'm definitely one of those people that I don't want to, if I feel like I'm not having fun making the video and it's supposed to be a fun video, I'm not going to do it. And I feel like I am in a privileged point now with 200,000 subscribers where I can pick my projects and they're going to get decent views no matter what. So it's that type of thing now of like, I'd rather make like 5 well-timed videos that I think are all important than 10 videos that are, some of these going to be sloppy and terrible, So I definitely now, like, I really want to talk about Life is Strange, True Colors. The game is really good, but I wasn't able to finish it in time. So it's like, well, I got to move on. Tales of Arise. That game looks amazing. I started playing it. I just didn't have enough time. So it's like, well, I could do a video about half the game, or I could just do this other video instead. So,
yeah, I mean, and it's also, we're kind of in such a bountiful time of game releases now. It's like, if you miss a game to review, there will be another game to review like next week, right? So yeah, can't be the end of the world.
The one thing I do want to say, one thing that sucks that I feel like people don't realize is how stuff on the internet, time moves so fast online. And if you're even 24, 48 hours late to talk about something, you're going to get buried in the search results. It actually hurts so much sometimes where I work so hard on a particularly giant in-depth video about a game, but something comes up in my personal life, a friend breaks down on the road and I end up spending a full day trying to help them out. And then that video bombs and it's like, oh God, it's like, but that's the way the internet works, is sometimes you win the lottery, sometimes you lose the lottery.
Yeah. Goddamn, Jerry just needs to fix his car.
Yeah. I'm like, Jerry, Cyberpunk just came out and that's got cars too.
You get a new car, Jerry. Come on, get it together. You're a mess.
There's this app called Uber, Jerry. That sounds like it's going to solve every problem for you. You ever go with that?
Yeah. Curious about, so you're writing these notes. You're kind of diagramming what the review might look like. Are you visualizing some persona or person that you're writing the review for, or maybe personas?
Only one particular person. So my stepmom is from Kenya, and she learned English very late in life. She speaks predominantly Swahili, and in Swahili, the way they do language is very different. And I sort of try and write to her because a lot of times what she says is, Max, I don't understand your videos, but they're so fun to watch. And I like that idea of being like, if I am high energy and explaining the goods and bads in the most simplistic language, everybody's going to enjoy it. And that's what I want. I don't want to, like, I do have a very verbose vocabulary, so I could vocalize this in a way that's very, very interesting. But if you go too many layers deep, you're going to turn people off. If you have too much crazy language or too many references, sometimes I'll click a video and it's got like a poem about V for Vendetta and an introduction about Doom 64. And it's like, how does anybody make it past the intro?
Confucius says that.
Yeah, exactly. And I have experimented with that. In my No Man's Sky thing, I put some Douglas Adams quotes, the infinity is flat, and I used book quotes in that. I don't know if that was the best choice. In my my review for Ghost of Tsushima, I talked about the old sword fighting training manuals I had as a kid. And even though that video kind of blew up, I could see about the analytics that people tuned out when I started referencing cross-media stuff. And it's like, oh,
right.
And that's the experiments you got to do, you know?
So you mentioned a few times about just, creating this review in a vacuum. Was that something that you started doing at the beginning, or something based off like how people view things, or when they leave your videos or pause your videos? Is that something that you've had to tweak over time?
I kind of came up with the idea. I don't know where I came up with it, but my whole plan originally was I want to make a review so good they're afraid to miss the next review. But I realized to do that, every video has to stand completely on its own. So at the end of it, they can watch the ones before it or the ones after it and be totally fine. You do not need to know any references or do any homework. There's no inside jokes. There's no references. It's just that. And so that was kind of my plan. And I don't know how I came up with that, but it's just kind of my original idea was like, I want to make people have fun with this video, but want the next one immediately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like that this is great. This is a really interesting topic that I think a lot about, especially now with Nintendo Switch being so popular. We have lots of people who've never played games before that are experiencing Nintendo Switch and video games as a genre, as a piece of media for the very first time. I'm thinking like our Discord members, someone like Ivy, who has never played certain games or particular popular games in a particular franchise, like Zelda or Metroid, and she has questions about where to start, which one is good, which one is worth the time. So I really appreciate this idea of creating this review in a vacuum so that's accessible to everyone. Just like the idea of creating a review or content that's with accessibility in mind is just really nice and really cool.
Stephen King wrote a book about how he wrote his books called On Writing, and he talks a lot about purposely keeping himself at the 9th grade level, where even the scariest monster still has like a 3-syllable descriptor of his gooey arms and stuff like that. And I've tried to keep that mentality in mind of being like, if I go too off the deep end of explaining something like the glistening vistas of these hills were breathtaking in a way I hadn't realized. Like if it gets too pedantic or too drags out, that's the main struggle I have, I guess, is that I want to make them almost video game documentaries, but if they go too off the deep end, you're going to lose a lot of people. And that's the fine line, because I feel like sometimes I feel like I nail it and sometimes I feel like I don't. I've experimented with skits, like in my Death Stranding video where I actually threw myself down the hills next to my apartment and stuff. I kind of, you're always trying to experiment, but sometimes it's always like, how goofy do I want this to be? How entertaining,
Right. And it's kind of like something you said earlier too, because you want to appeal to kind of having that kind of like base level of like where you're going to appeal to the most number of people that you possibly can without alienating anybody. But then you don't really have to worry about retaining viewers, because if they're subscribed to your channel, they're subscribed to you because they like you. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I think that's kind of a thing that a lot of people like forget about with content creation, is they feel like they really have to like keep their viewers around and like cater to them. But it's like, they're going to listen to you regardless, because, they've just like your stepmom who doesn't really understand a ton of what you're saying maybe, but likes your energy, like there are people who listen to this podcast that have never owned a Switch or don't even really game. I think if you just put stuff out at a consistent clip, like there will be someone out there who like your shit is their comfort food. You know what I mean?
That's kind of a good thing to remember. I have. Do I have it next to me? I don't have it next to me. So I have a fan letter that somebody sent me once where I made a video that was called Top 10 Best PlayStation 4 Games to Play Co-op. And the video ended up going really viral. And a guy met me in real life and he gave me a book with a letter inside where he said he'd never played a video game in his life. And on his 40th birthday, he saw that video and he saw how fun it was. And he had no idea that video games had progressed past bleeps and bloops. You realize a lot of people, as big as this stuff is, most people know about Nintendo stuff, but nothing else. And so seeing Uncharted and like Final Fantasy 14 online is like, oh my God, like just like, it was like explaining another dimension. So you end up getting a PS4 and playing all 10 games in that list. And you have given me a book and stuff. And it made me realize like, oh yeah, like our videos, like our podcast, all this stuff is somebody's first ever glance into this huge universe.
Yeah.
And those are the kinds of people that'll write you fan mail too.
True.
Well, that was an awesome tangent there, but bringing it back specifically to like your process and stuff. If there's anything else, maybe we can ask a few more questions about that. Like, you know, I don't want to like harp on this because it sounds like you don't feel much pressure. You know, you kind of just back off something if it doesn't feel like the timing is right. But is there any, you know, like, do you ever get review codes and you feel like you need to get? Is there pressure from developers at all to put out a review that you feel?
Here and there, but never. Usually it's just that you can tell that it is a PR person who wants access to your platform. They know they have a good game. They know they're not giving you garbage. They're like, all right, please make a big in-depth video about this Dreamcast guy because we know it's going to get views and it's going to lead to sales of this game and we need it to sell. So they'll push it a little bit, but I've never felt like you better make this, buddy, or you ain't going to have 2 kneecaps. You know, like
right.
Everybody's pretty chill about it.
That's kind of the prevailing. I mean, there's a lot of that kind of hesitancy amongst gamers, I think. A lot of like distrust in reviewers, you know what I mean? Because I mean, I think that's the, you know, people always point to IGN and they're like, oh, they give everything like 7s and 8s and they must be paid off by the studios or whatever. But I don't know that happens as much as gamers think they do. Maybe gamers are a little bit more conspiratorially minded, but it does seem like that. A lot of people assume that there's all this kind of like shady kind of like background shit.
Yeah,
I think so. I want to not to stoke that conspiracy, but I do have a chance to talk privately with IGN reviewers and GameSpot reviewers. And I think the only difference between them and the tiny YouTubers that you see making videos is that IGN and GameSpot and all these people, they are friends with the developers. They'll like go there and they get access for IGN first and they get the first peeks behind the scenes and they know stuff they're not supposed to know. So I feel like that probably does influence them a little bit. I feel like I do consider it a superpower that I have this bubble around me where my real life friends don't really game much. We play board games and we read books and we watch movies, but I feel like I live in this nice bubble where I come here and I play my games and I talk about them on camera and then I go have a fucking life, you know? And so it makes it where it's very easy that if a game sucks, I can give it a 4 and I lose no sleep. I'm not going to have to look some guy in the eye, like, why'd you do that to me, Max? You know, it's like, because your game's a 4. You know? So I don't know.
It's not personal.
Yeah, exactly. Look, buddy, I got to get paid. You got to get paid. All right.
They were going to break my kneecaps.
Exactly. I do think that the thing that's the most difficult for me content wise, the only stuff that feels like the pressure is high is all these online games as a service projects like Avengers, Play Avengers or whatever. Like a lot of times these games, Destiny, stuff like that. The problem is that I can only talk about it as it exists now. So a lot of times with those videos, I have a big disclaimer at the beginning where I'm saying, I'm talking the way it exists right now on September 20th, because people will come there later and call me a liar or something for updates that came out later. This guy said that shotguns can only reload every 30 seconds, but now it's every 1 second. Play the game. It's like, well, things have changed. So that's the only time where I'm afraid a little bit, because I feel like I'm talking about a beach and the tide's about to come in. So I have to talk about it before the wave hits and washes away all my work.
That's a good way to put that.
That's an interesting point. That's something I had here for possible discussion if we got to it later, but you brought it up. I mean, that's true of all games now too, right? I mean, like, does that ever affect you? You know, do you ever go back and re-review a game after a major update, or do you just kind of like have to have that caveat? I mean, I feel like maybe people are starting to understand that more too, as fans and viewers, but maybe not. David makes a face. I don't
know. I just feel like context is dead in the age of the internet. You know,
true. Yeah. Well, that's why because I know we were going to talk about my different aggressive titling at times. Typically, like the brutally honest reviews or the honest reviews. Typically, I'll do my Was I Wrong series when I'm re-reviewing a game later. So if I said a game was bad and they released a bunch of gigantic updates, I do a Was I Wrong where I analyze my original video and usually even play through the same sections, but now with the updated stuff they've added in and talk about how it's so much better. So it's like that nice thing of being like, all right, so it gives me a chance to sort of self-analyze. I do feel like sometimes that makes people mad though, because on the internet, people don't want you to change your mind. You're not allowed to like update your opinion. So I have times where I made some really anti-Xbox videos like 5 years ago. And now I go on Xbox podcast and the chat's like, this is that guy who hates Xbox. I'm like, bro, that was like 2016. Oh my God. You know, that was before we knew what the Xbox Series X was, brother. Get some sunlight.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think people like to peg people, right? Like not put stuff in their butt, but like they figure out, I'm sure people like to do that too. But it's like, yeah, I think people just love to, I don't know. I just think everybody loves to be so judgmental and be like, okay, I think also it's because people don't have time to like watch multiple videos from a person, and they watch one thing, make their opinion on the person, and then move on. But the crazy thing is that they never let go of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because our brains are like wired to retain the most pointless memories. You just keep that in your head forever.
Have you seen that meme where it says like, it's like a pie chart and it says what I said, and then it says what you've assumed, and it's like most of the pie, and the guy takes the big part of the pie and walks to this person and goes, why would you do this? And it's like, I did it. I'm like, that's the entire internet.
We all need to sit down and read the 4 agreements. All right. I think that's going to be the best way to go about this.
No, totally. The universe is not experienced simultaneously. So like, you every once in a while see, people dunking on teenagers for saying something stupid or whatever online, like TikTok's videos getting passed around about like something dumb that teenagers are saying, but it's like, man, they're teenagers. I've had a lot more time to absorb facts than in reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just teenagers now have everything they say recorded and put online for infinity.
I used to post a lot on the World of Warcraft forums in the early 2000s, and you used to be able to post a single image. And I used to do a thing where I'd kill people in the game, and then I'd talk trash on the internet, and then people would do some sort of dare, and I would take a picture of the dare and post it on there. And my face was in a lot of these photos, and I remember particularly there was one where I put cake ice cream in a Master Chief doll's butt, and I licked ice cream out of his butt crack. And I'm always like, man, I'm so glad that the early 2000s the internet has kind of disappeared. Because that, like, imagine if I was a content creator now, I would have done that on camera, and I would have had that. And every time people were mad at me, I'd see that butt crack come back to haunt me.
Well, our listeners are now pulling up the Wayback Machine.
If somebody can find that particular image is funny, I would repost that again myself.
I'll see if we can find it.
What's that search string? Dreamcast guy.
Master Chief SEO cake, on the butt
Master Chief cake ass.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got you pegged.
Lights. We teach classes here.
All right, moving on. Well, one thing that we kind of haven't talked much about, but we talked a little bit about on the break that I'd like to hear you talk about is sort of how you deal with reactions to your channel. And obviously we talked about getting positive mail and somebody being turned on to video games and that kind of stuff. And that's awesome. But what about the flip side of that? Somebody even moderately popular is going to get some hate, right?
Yeah, I get hate. I get downvote bombed occasionally. I have seen some big creators speak negatively and stuff like that. I have a strange philosophy, which is that I think downvote bombing is not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's a group of people trying to voice their opinion. One of my videos recently got completely downvote bombed to the ground, but it was a group of people basically saying, we disagree with your points here. And it doesn't cost me any subscribers. I'm not really losing anything. It is just one of those things of like, it's people trying to voice their opinion. I think it's strange when people are angry. I guess that's the thing, is that to me, it is just video games. It is just fun. It is just talking about this cool art we all get to enjoy. I have gotten some death threats and stuff. And those are always the weirdest, where it's like, I didn't like this game. And people are like, take it back. That's the weird stuff. I don't know. In general, I feel like 99% of the hate comments you get on YouTube specifically are people just wanting you to improve. I don't think people want you to quit. Even the YouTubers you dislike, even when IGN gives a game you love a 4 out of 10, you don't want IGN to get deleted, most likely. You just wish they were better at reviewing games. So a lot of times when people leave me bad comments or say your opinion on this is incorrect, they're not saying Dreamcast Guy stop. They're saying do better, do better. So I guess I kind of enjoy mean comments in a way, because I feel like they do give you some critical extra perspective. I used to start all my videos with "What's up, guys? DreamcastGuy here," and it sounded really dumb. So a hater actually told me to say "What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here," and now that's like my iconic phrase. You know, it's like if I didn't read those mean comments or if I deleted them, I feel like I'd get less good feedback.
That's a very mature way to look at that.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, you know, we're dealing with art, and like reactions to art are subjective, right? Like, and if whether you like a game and review it positively, I think you do a good job because you analyze it and you might, have arguments and that sort of thing. And that's where it turns into a little bit more than just a subjective, this game sucks or whatever. But like, yeah, I don't, maybe I'm just ranting here about like, yeah, it's dumb that people get that upset about subjective art. Like,
it feels good when I end up being right objectively though, like down the road. Like when I was saying, I drilled Anthem into the concrete and I got a lot of hate for it. People would be like, you're just bashing him because it's not KOTOR and stuff like that. And I get like, no, this game lacks features. It lacks polish. And now Anthem is dead. And so I get to be there like, oh, hi, gentlemen. Oh, is this your sometimes I will. I'll be honest. A couple times I have gone back to old hate comments like 2 years later when I was writing, but like, how'd that turn out? And 99% of the time they apologize. They're like, I'm sorry, brother. My second wife wrong. Just left me.
Well, I think
I was in a really bad place at the time.
Right. I think it's always interesting. This is a total aside when, there's that article or whatever where somebody like follows up on people who leave negative comments and like somehow gets in touch with them and like asks them about it. It's usually that, right? It's like, oh, I don't know, I was having a bad day and you're right, they're a person and I shouldn't have done that, like the internet's not a good place for.
I've dug around. The strangest thing to me is a lot of times when I've gotten mean comments or people saying I'm ugly or whatever like that, when I dig around, it's usually like middle-aged men. Like that's the weirdest thing is that I feel like a lot of people, they assume it's teenagers. Teenagers I feel like have more empathy than some of these like 40-year-old truck drivers or something. I'm not sure who these want to be. It's like, it feels like people that I can't be a serial killer because I'm a fucking pussy. So instead I'm just going to leave mean comments on the internet.
I watched this is kind of a weird aside, but I watched the Woodstock 99 documentary that's on HBO. And it's fascinating. And it's like, it was like a total failed festival. And it was, Woodstock is known for being like the love and peace like festival, but this was like, Korn and like Limp Bizkit and it was just like they were totally off base. And so all the dudes who were coming to this thing, it was like mostly like angry white dudes, right? Like in the late 90s. And the documentary is very much like about like kind of this like toxic masculinity that was like big in the late 90s, early 2000s and shit like that with these bands. And so when the documentary came out, they were like advertising it on social media and I was like interested. So I went into the comments because they would always have tons of comments and there were so many of them that were like, I was there. It was fine. This fucking documentary is woke. And all of them were like the dudes in the front seat of their car with the sunglasses
and low brim hat.
Yeah. I just feel like that generation has never matured past that age and will always be haters. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe I'm looking a bit too far into that, but it's like, I just found that to be very interesting. And
y'all are talking about me.
But you're chill, Patrick. You're chill.
Yeah, you do always say that Limp Bizkit's album, Hot Dog Flavored Water, is their best one.
Yeah, much better than $3.
It's just one of those things. But I did want to say though, because it is also true though too on YouTube that it's like, I mean, I feel like like putting a thumbs down or commenting that you hate somebody's video is like still essentially helping the algorithm, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, any kind of engagement is going to be like helpful for a YouTube channel to grow. So it's like, I think just part of being a content creator is like having a bit of a thick skin, you know what I mean? And like, we're comedians, the three of us, like we all started doing like live comedy and shit like that. So it's like, I learned pretty early, not everybody's gonna love every show you fucking do, you know? So it's like, it's good to just kind of take those in stride if you can, and just let the system, feed itself if you can.
Well, Well, a suggestion I give to people who are probably wanting to get into this line of work and make game reviews and stuff, and this is a twofold thing: get hobbies outside of gaming. I specifically was in the book business for 10 years, and so I read a lot of very weird random sci-fi and fiction and self-help and a lot of just weird like true crime and stuff, and it gave me a better viewpoint in general about how to speak, about how to communicate my points and stuff. And it also made it where now I have this safe space in my own brain where when people are mad or whatever, I can step away from the internet and I have these completely separate hobbies that I could never turn into a video. Nobody gives a crap about the Final Fantasy manga, but I've read all of it, and I think that makes I know I filmed a video that I've never posted called I read every Final Fantasy book, and it's 23 books. It's terrible, but I think it makes you a better content creator to have this ability to step away from the content sometimes and then look at your own stuff objectively. I do think a lot of the YouTubers who quit or burn out are the people that just lock in and just grind it out. And it's like, you're only hurting yourself. You're only hurting the content.
Totally.
Well, you kind of hinted at this earlier because we have it in the notes, but unless somebody else has a different question, like, can you talk about the wording, your choice for the branding of honest review and brutally honest review and
so it originally came from when I was doing my Shenmue 3 review years ago, because I spent about $500 total across the Kickstarters, and there was a thing called the Slacker Backer and then the Super Collector's Edition. But I wanted to make it very clear in the titling that I was going to be objective, even as a mega fan of Shenmue. And so I was trying to think of how can a lot of times with my titles, I call it the 7-word rule. I try and have less than 7 total words in the title. So I was like, all right, well, my honest review of Shenmue 3, I'm at 6. Good. Let's put brutally in there. It was just that. And then it was one of the things where the algorithm really picked it up and liked it. And that's something that people could search. And then I just kind of started throwing it around here and there. And when I needed to be longer, I put the word brutally. And when I needed to be shorter, I just make it honest. And it's like, I think that was also when I was experimenting with the idea of making it more of a Dreamcast Guy production. I wanted it to be like, these titles are my video of this, my review of this, And it works sometimes it doesn't. So sometimes like I still do the does it suck when it's a beta or something like that, but I don't do those as much as I used to. But I don't know. It's kind of about, I feel like I try and be very loosey-goosey with it and just try out what works and see what's fun and what I'm in the mood for. There isn't really like this strict set of guidelines. There is like no master manual I'm working from.
Sure. Well, I'm kind of curious about this. Like we've talked about, that you're trying to make a review for maybe somebody who's not watched other reviews or even thought about other games, so you don't compare it to them. But what about in terms of making a review is this for somebody who's not played? I assume you're making it for somebody who's not played the game, but I feel like reviews are also often consumed by people who've already played and beaten the game and want to just hear somebody talk about it. Do you ever think about those two things?
I try not to cater to those people because I feel like that is actually the minority audience. And secondary, there's actually a second part of this, which is YouTube likes a lot of views in the first 48 hours. And not to be like this, but the people who watch it 6 months down the line, yeah, it's great that I got that like AdSense or whatever, and the people that are liking the video, but that's not going to spread. That's not going to be searched and stuff. So I want to make sure everything is as hot and relevant when it drops. And if I end up doing a video, sometimes I'll do a spoiler talk or something later. That's for the people who want to watch it later. And those videos sometimes end up having better watch time. I did that for Resident Evil Village, and that spoiler video really blew up because I know a lot of people were watching the reviews after they beat it, but then a lot of people were like, there's freaking zombie robots. I have to watch a video explaining the zombie robots, So I don't know. Stuff like that is fun to me, but it's always that hard road of being like, all right, which demographic do you cater to? Like, this is actually one of the questions I used to get a lot is why do I only review console games? I do not talk about stuff on PC. There's a very specific reason for that, which is Angry Joe. Angry Joe started off as a console reviewer. And then when he got really, really rich, no offense to Joe, but he started reviewing everything on a $10,000 PC that most people are not going to have. And so a lot of times I feel like the graphics and the experience that he's getting is not the mainstream experience. So I wanted to make sure that I was creating reviews that would be the most relatable. So I only review the console versions of games that exist on consoles. I do not, even though I do have a good gaming PC, I do not play it on my PC because I feel like that's not the mainstream experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you want to have the same relative experience that everybody else is going to have. That makes sense. Yeah.
I don't want to be like, yes, well, I was playing Cyberpunk in 8K. My computer began to hover in the air, and I felt God coming down from the heavens.
The common man will have this experience, surely.
Yeah. The developer was rubbing my feet as I went into 16K.
The human eye can't comprehend the frame rate over here.
There's a second rainbow beneath each iris of a character's eyeball if you zoom in.
Oh boy. I lost what I was gonna
Yeah,
say
I know.
there.
It's all good. I mean, maybe we can move on to some of this last stuff that we have in the notes here. I know, like, I personally, this is a complete total aside. This is not going to sequitur from anything we just talked about. But I am curious as to what your thoughts on this, as like somebody who is a reviewer, does this like pretty professionally. Like, what do you think about like user reviews, like on Metacritic? Because I pretty much like really don't like them. I find so often that the system is just completely rigged, and it's just used by that angry fan base who might downvote a video to then just like review bomb games. And I just feel like we hear so many stories about, you know, games getting review bombed on Metacritic and the developers being like, guys, come on, like, what the fuck, you know? Or it's like they said one thing that the Gamergate crowd like really was opposed to.
Yeah.
And so they come out en masse and start to downvote everything. I mean, I'm not trying to say like, hey, we should only trust, you know, people who do this professionally, but it just seems like such a system that's easy to be corrupted. Like, I'm just curious as to what your take is on that.
So it's one of those things where I feel like it's bad a lot of times, yes, but I feel like gamers are kind of in this weird spot where we don't have a way to talk to developers. Like, they purposely put like 5 layers between us. If you try and post on the Reddit, usually an employee will censor the bad comments. If you try and tweet them something, a community manager purposely blocks that so developers don't hear it. And then they take the most sugar-coated versions of it and give it back. Now, most of the time, that is the useful feedback. But I feel like gamers do not have a proper way to communicate mass unrest. So I feel like people, like, remember No Man's Sky was really, really heavily hated at the beginning. And I feel like the ability to downvote bomb that was very useful. One that really comes to mind was one of the most hated games on user reviews of all time was Warcraft 3 Reforged. And now with the Blizzard leaked notes, we see that they realized that project was screwed only when they saw the user reviews downvote bombing it. Because internally they're like, yeah, this is fine. And then they didn't give out any review codes because they're like, oh, whatever, it's just Warcraft 3. And then when people in mass, the paying fans were upset, they were like, oh no, like that's when they realized. So I feel like while it is so easily corruptible, I feel like some good comes from it. And that's my thought, is that if any good comes from it, I'm afraid to like axe all of it over. Yeah. And I feel like the bad that comes from it is, oh man, an angry number showed up. You know, it's like the bad parts of it. I feel like at least if we could just be brutally honest here, for lack of a better term, even if people are shooting the worst hate, at least they're shooting it onto this separate website than at the individual developers. The stuff I feel the most bad for is when it's like a guy who's like, I made the trees in Halo, and people are like, burn your house down. It's like,
and it is also the same thing that we were talking about earlier with the algorithm. It's like when there always is, like, when a game is review bombed, there are articles about how it's getting review bombed, and then people like review it highly to fight against the review bombers or whatever. And I guess it does just like increase the conversation regardless, right? So I've just always been very split on that. And you know, I worked on the new Masters of the Universe show, and that shit got review bombed like to hell and back. And so it was like during that time I was like, let's just abolish the whole thing.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where when it's toxic, it's extremely toxic. And that's what sucks is I feel like we need to have communication classes or something in high schools now or something. Yes. I feel like we need to teach people how to express anger, because so many times when people go to it, it's everything is the worst game. This destroyed my family. I bought this for my last $60 and then my dog got blown up in Iraq. Like, nobody ever has a normal criticism of games anymore, you know?
Yeah, totally.
I thought of what I wanted to ask you, and that's, so this is kind of a step backwards. I apologize for that, but like,
it's okay.
You've referenced a lot, you know, that you look at the metrics on YouTube and data, and that I'm just kind of curious. It sounds like that data informs a lot of your thinking about your videos. Is that fair to say, or is that just something you kind of notice and you still do what you want to do?
So I do what I want to do, but I feel like I call it like baiting, which is that I feel like I find out what people are the most interested in. So if I have 5 projects in front of me and I can tell that one of them is going to be like bait, it's going to be the people that are going to engage with it more. It's going to get more hour or 2 views and stuff. It's like, all right, like this is stuff that's more worth my time. All these projects are going to be fun to create. But if this video is going to pay my rent in one video and these 5 videos are maybe going to get like half the views, it is kind of that like trying to figure out the balance. But it is the type of thing that sometimes my friends who aren't in this business, they're like, do you ever feel constrained to create what the audience wants? And I say, well, no, it kind of feels like Metallica can play whatever they want, but if you paid for tickets to a Metallica show and they come on stage, you kind of want them to play Metallica. So it's like, all right, I'm doing game reviews in the way that I'm going to do game reviews. I'm not going to have today's interpretive dance about why Zelda makes me feel like a butterfly. I'm not going to do that.
Only playing the songs from the new album. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what the second channel's for, right? Like,
Exactly.
So in the words of Metallica, give me fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire.
Exactly. Gotta read it in an NPR voice. Hey guys, welcome back to Give Me Fuel and Give Me Desire.
Latch me sing.
Well, it's been a while, but is there anything else we want to ask? Or
Yeah,
talk
just
about
curious. So
reviews?
we've been talking about game reviews, and we've been talking about you mentioned that you read all Final Fantasy books. Like, what are some other hobbies that you might encourage gamers to explore?
I'm really big into cross media analysis, and I really feel like more people should do it. So I'm super into time loop stories. So I watched the Tom Cruise movie Edge of Tomorrow, and I realized it's a book by a guy named Miyazaki.
Movie.
So I tracked down the original novelization, which is called All You Need Is Kill, and I read that. Then I found out that they did a Japanese mangaka of it, and the mangaka is really interesting because they made the zombies or the monsters these gigantic weird orbs. And the Americans decided that they didn't like this. So the Americans made a different version of this where it's like they changed the story and they make jokes like it's someday we're going to be at a Tom Cruise movie. Like it's super referential and stuff. And I feel like it makes you better at talking about video games and talking about media across the board if you're able to analyze stuff in private. Like the more you're able to dissect and explain stuff, like I really like Scott Pilgrim versus the World. In the different printings of Scott versus the World, when it's in black and white, there's a joke where Ramona Flowers says, "Can't you tell that I'm a beautiful little pixie dream girl? My hair is a different color every time we meet." And he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, this book's in black and white." So when they printed it in color, she makes the same joke, and it says at the bottom, editor's note, this book was originally in black and white, even though you do see that she's changed her hair color. I don't know, stuff like that. I feel like it makes me better at writing scripts. It makes me better talking about video games to constantly be drinking in all these different things like artsy movies and weird board games and stuff. It makes you better at it instead of just only games all day. Cause then I feel like then you're going to get too stuck in there. And you're not going to be able to explore.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's like, and it also gives you a better appreciation, like I'm a filmmaker and it's like, that's where I got my start and I'm like way into games as well. And I think that my love of games makes me appreciate movies more when they really stick it. And then my appreciation of movies makes me appreciate games more because both are very individualized ways to tell a story. You know what I mean? And I love that aspect of it. It just makes me appreciate all art more, I think, when you are more exposed to it,
Like I'm super obsessed with BioShock. I got my BioShock tattoos and I feel like that only works as a game because it's you being forced to murder these people and do all these terrible crimes and stuff. And as a movie, you would watch a guy do these bad things. So like, yeah, he shouldn't have done that. But no, it's you. The blood is on your hands. And so I feel like
coming the whole time. Yeah.
I don't know, man. I still wish I could have seen that Gore Verbinski version of BioShock, man.
Yeah.
That would have been amazing. But you're right. You're right, though. It's that agency, right? Like when you're, I mean, that's why I think so many people were turned off by Modern Warfare 2, you know, like the whole airport scene. It's like, fuck. You know,
Yeah.
if this was a movie, it's whatever, but I'm gunning down these people and this feels weird, you know?
Or why a lot of people were offended with what was which Advanced Warfare where it made you walk up, press F to pay respects, where it's like a forced QTE of a dead American soldier is so tone deaf. It's like, if this was non-interactable, if this was a scene in a movie, we're willing to accept it because we don't have agency, but hold F to pay respects is very visceral.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it so much. You reminded me of just trying to understand what the creator's vision is for a particular game. There was a Metal Gear Solid documentary that came out within the last couple of weeks. It's 2.5 hours long. It explains the series from beginning to end, and it goes into very, very fine detail about Kojima's perspective of what it was like when he released Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, and like the strong reactions. And then it goes even further when they talk about Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, and how it's an allegory. It's very similar to Moby Dick, all the way down to, you know, the name of his ship in it is called Pequod. The name of the helicopter in Phantom Pain is called Pequod. But there's lots of really strong reactions of Phantom Pain at the time. And this sent me down a big, deep rabbit hole of really learning about the Phantom Pain and Kojima and what he wants to do from a creator, where he started at Konami, where he is today with Death Stranding. And just what you're saying just really resonates with me of like learning about the person who is making the art so you can fully understand the art even more.
Yeah,
totally.
Which I feel like ends up, it becomes that hard line to walk though, because I feel like sometimes I don't want to be influenced by that, but like Final Fantasy VII is my favorite game of all time. And every time I've read so many different books about the making of and watched all the interviews and stuff. And now I know that it's going to subtly influence me. And so everything Final Fantasy VII that comes out, I'm going to give it a notch higher than probably anybody else, because to me, it's that thing up. I feel like it's interesting. You know, I'm really obsessed with Final Fantasy XIV, and there's that 3-hour documentary about the death and rebirth of Final Fantasy XIV, where that game sucked so bad that they brought in like a hatchet man from a different part of the company to wreck the whole game and rebuild it. And it worked, and it became this gigantic success. And he talks about like how hard it was to walk in and be like, I'm sorry, this is terrible. This is terrible. Burn down that city. Like, I know you guys love it, and I have to be the bad guy. And it worked. And now everybody celebrates him, but it's kind of that like, man, if that failed, you would have been the villain forever.
Yeah.
I love that kind of stuff.
Me too.
Complete aside, but also, man, I think we were at, I didn't see you there, but I think we were at that same Final Fantasy VII remake concert in Fort Worth. Yeah, we were there on the first night.
Friday, yeah.
Yeah. We were there. Me and Matt were there at that. That was fucking wild, man. I had a really good time at that show. Anyway, that's a complete aside.
I bought the very last ticket. I was next to the sound booth, and there was this guy who has to like, you know, make sure all the instruments are tuned in, but his blare, he has like these blaring lights on there. So I had literally the worst seat in the whole house, and I'm still like wiping tears from my eyes. It's so beautiful. I was like, this is perfect.
That was incredible. So I started crying like immediately.
Dude, that just at the very end, the fact that they did 3 encores, and we're getting too deep cut for the audience, but just the 3
we're
encores.
Just talking now. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then ending it with that One Winged Angel rendition that was like everybody just bashing the hell out of the instruments. Oh my God, it was amazing.
It was wild. Anyway, we can wrap up.
Yeah, we should probably move on. Unless somebody wants to cut me off here, I think that's our discussion about reviews. Obviously, we barely scratched the surface about game reviews. There's so much to analyze there, so I'm sure we'll talk about it some in the future. But thanks for that. We're gonna take another real short break, and then we're gonna talk about all the games we've been playing recently. Briefly, 3 games I want to talk about. I'm still playing WarioWare Get It Together, playing that a lot with my son, and that's been a lot of fun. In particular, there's like one of the weird mini games. I should have looked up what it's called. It's like a platformer. You're going left to right, and you can play it 2-player, and you're trying to pick up contracts as you go, and you're just like, and then you get to the end of the level, and then the levels get harder and harder.
I played that one as well. I forget what it's called.
I think that's our favorite mode over here.
Are there
not in
that?
Not in that. That's like, it's like a little mode that's kind of like a 2D platformer, and you kind of can. I don't know if it ever ends or if it's just infinite and they just repeat and they get faster with more enemies or whatever. But like, I don't know. That one has been big hit over here.
I played that game yesterday with like a non-gamer, just because I knew it would be like batshit enough to where it would at least hold her attention. And it did. And it's such a interesting balance for that game because it's like purposefully difficult, I think, to people who don't play games very often. You know what I mean? Because you have to learn so quickly.
Yes,
but it was engaging enough to where like we just played them over and over and over again, and she eventually got good. So
what's the name of the game?
WarioWare Get It Together?
Oh, God.
Oh, no, sorry. You're talking about
the contracts one.
What are we talking about?
Yeah.
Right. I wish I knew. I'm sorry.
I'll see if I can pull it up.
I'll talk about the other games real quick I've been playing that I want to mention. I also wanted to mention I've been playing Brothers. It's the like you're controlling two characters.
Tale of Two Sons.
Yes, Tale of Two Sons, 4 or 5 years old game. I just started playing that. Pretty short game, but I'm enjoying that so far. A really unique gameplay style there, with controlling two characters at once. Kind of breaks my brain when they're on the wrong side.
Is it the same studio that did It Takes Two eventually?
Yep.
Did they went on to A Way Out? Yeah.
Joseph Ferris. That was Joseph Ferris's first project.
That's right.
That's pretty nice. And then I also wanted to mention Shovel Knight again because I've been talking about this. I was trying to play the Plague Knight and complaining about that last week because the controls on Plague Knight just never clicked with me, and I was getting real frustrated. And I was like, I think I'm just going to not play any more Shovel Knight. And then I was talking to a friend of the podcast, Austin, about this, and he's like, "Oh, you should try the Spectre Knight one because it's actually a little bit more intuitive," and it is. And I'm actually really enjoying Spectre Knight, and I think I will actually beat that. And then maybe after that, I'll try Plague Knight again. Daily Grind is the WarioWare mode. Yeah. In theory, you're supposed to be like picking up sales contracts or something like that and making money. Anyway, it's weird, but
it's a very bizarre mode. Yeah,
but I enjoy it. So there you go. That's what I've been playing.
I'll go next. Like I said, we played a little bit of WarioWare yesterday. Did a stream the other day, which was a lot of fun. Played speaking of WarioWare, did the Tetris Maximus Cup. And did well enough. Off stream, I actually won one. But then, of course, when I was on stream and I was like feeling really like good about myself because the last time I streamed that game, I like won multiple times in a row. This time, not so much, man. Don't stream Tetris 99 during a Maximus Cup because that's when all like the real gamers come out to play, and it's impossible to get anything done, and you die immediately. So that was a little embarrassing. Played a little bit of Spelunky 2 online with Rapatika. We wanted to stream that too, but I couldn't figure out how to get the Discord audio in. I'm kind of an idiot. And then I would do the stuff on a MacBook, and it's not Mac friendly. I'll tell you that much. But then, other than that, I finished Super Metroid. I've been doing I think like so many others, I've been replaying the old 2D Metroids before Dread comes out. So I'm so excited for Dread. And I just finished Super Metroid. It's the first time I ever actually beat that game. That's one of those like Super Nintendo games that I never actually owned when I was a kid. So I always played either through emulation or on Virtual Console or whatever. So I never like actually got too far into it. But this time I like forced myself to finish the game, and goddamn, it's such a good game. Very like emotional ending to that game, which is really surprising given the simplicity of it. And so I've been really enjoying that. And I started Metroid Fusion today. I'm probably gonna play that one off stream. Just because I'm playing it on my little handheld emulator because it's not on the goddamn Switch. I'll be continuing to play that, and I think I'm starting to stick with a stream schedule of streaming on Wednesdays after the episodes come out. So make sure you check out my Twitch channel. What about you, Matt? What have you been playing recently?
I've been playing Psychonauts 2.
Nice.
I think I'm maybe about 4 hours into it. Beautiful game. Like incredibly beautiful game. There are just some worlds that are just super detailed. I'm just like so impressed that a game like that exists and a world like that exists. And it's like funny writing and great voice acting. If you have Game Pass or have an Xbox and you love 3D platformers, play Psychonauts 2.
Oh yeah.
It's really fun. Also went to this past Friday, went to a LAN party. because that's what I did.
COVID's over, folks. LAN parties are back on.
I was kissing everyone and licking their butts.
Good. Hell yeah.
That's all I was.
Are sanitary.
Yeah. If you know anything about me, I'll primarily play any game if it's a social event. And so I was playing a game series that I don't normally play. I'm a Halo player, but someone was like, "Hey, we're having this LAN party. Come over, bring snacks." And I will do anything for snacks. So I played Call of Duty Warzone.
Okay, nice.
Apparently, I'm a Call of Duty head now. It's a Call of Duty Warzone podcast. I had fun.
Duty head.
Yeah,
Man, Warzone is more fun than any Call of Duty online experience that I've personally had.
Yeah, have you played it?
I've played a little bit of Warzone. I haven't played a ton, but it's like, as far as the battle royales go, I think it's definitely one of the better ones.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's so many guns. I'm overwhelmed by that game, by just the amount of weapons and understanding the mechanics. And so everyone was like socializing and having a good time. And I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know if I'm playing well. I'm playing pretty poorly. I'm getting some kills.
Sweating.
Yeah. Just sweaty. And like the time to kill is so fast in Call of Duty. And I'm a Halo player. So my reactions are so different when I play Halo, which is I play really aggressive and then I'm really good at getting away and surviving. But you can't do that in Call of Duty. It's like you're aggressive and you got to commit to it. Mm-hmm. But it was nice to be in a room eating chocolate covered popcorn and playing Xbox with a bunch of friends. It was nice.
Very good. Max, what about you? What have you been playing this past week?
Just a lot of some stuff I can't talk about yet, but just in my free time, I'm still playing a little bit of Deathloop. I've put so many hours into Deathloop. I'm probably not going to platinum it. Some of the last collectibles are a little bit tedious, but it's still a good game. I'm still just super hooked on Final Fantasy 14. Mm-hmm. That game just keeps getting bigger and crazier, and there's so much to do. I've always played it off and on through the years, but it's such a strange, because now it's been out a decade. I think they're coming up on the decade anniversary of Final Fantasy 14. So it has an in-game card game. There's like hundreds of different dungeons. And what's interesting about the game is that nothing is mandatory. So a lot of people just hang out in town and talk and be goofy. And I joined a gym in the game and I learned how to do push-ups. And so now in town, I just do push-ups with people all the time and stuff. Like it is the most casual, fun, nobody really gives a shit game I've ever played in my life. And it becomes almost more addictive because nothing is forced on you. It's like, all right, yeah, you want to go walk around and talk to some cat girls? Okay, yeah, go over there. Oh, okay, you just want to drive your motorcycle and then fly with your motorcycle? Sure, you can do that. So that's been my main addiction this last couple months. It's been a good time.
Hell yeah.
Nice. Well, then I guess that does it for this episode. Thank you so much, Dreamcast Guy, for coming and talking to us. We really appreciate that. Thanks to MilkyWay.co, who does our website. Thanks to Corduroy, who does our music. If you're looking for me, Patrick Online, I am PDYX.
Before I say my handles, I want to say a shout out to Corduroy. Also, he's got music in the latest Meow Wolf installation. So
that's right.
If you're in Denver, Colorado, you're go to Convergence Station. The person who makes the theme song for this podcast, it's got some music and several pieces in the installation. So shout out to Corduroy. Big fan. Anyways, I'm on Twitter. Twitter, MATHYOU, Matthew.
You can find Matthew online at running the Corduroy fan club. I'm pretty much ever on the internet at Monolith Fiji. And what about you, Dreamcast Guy? Where can people find you online?
Just everything Dreamcast Guy over on YouTube. Twitter, I probably tweet too many memes. And Instagram, which is mostly just pictures of me lifting weights. So enjoy it.
Yeah. Doing push-ups in Final Fantasy 14.
Exactly.
Yeah. Final Fantasy 14 and real life. That's the balance.
Exactly. All of the above.
Yeah. Very good. And then, of course, if you'd like to find our show on social media, we are at Super Switch Headz on Instagram and Facebook, and we are at Switch Headz on Twitter. And then please join us on Discord. We have a wonderful, non-toxic, beautiful Discord community. We'd love to have you join if you're listening to this show. And we've got a Facebook group as well that's also non-toxic and fantastic as well, but a lot more memes. Great communities, both of them. So make sure you join those. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for our episode on reviews. Thanks again to DreamcastGuy. Personal note, big fan of your channel. I'm so glad to have you on the show, man. I really appreciate you joining us. Big fan of the Spawncast as well, so give my love to all of them. And a big inspiration for this show, for sure. Folks, get the shot. If you haven't gotten the shot, man, come on. We're so close to killing this thing. Just get the vaccine. We're almost done. Wear your mask if you feel like you need to. And also, if you're just in a big place, it's probably not a bad idea. You're not going to hurt anybody. Anyway, hopefully one day I can stop telling you to do that at the end of this podcast. But in the meantime, we love you guys very much. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.